So, in your observation, perhaps analysis, are you able to tell if there are any differences in negative behavior among young people between the different ethnicities or geographical spaces in the country?
Yes, but I would say more it's a matter of culture. So so the short answer is whenever I see a young man that does well, whenever it's Parents' Day, it's both parents coming. Whenever I see a young man that is, I was going to use a term which I probably shouldn't use, who is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, it is usually someone who parents don't come or they have a tendency of not being, or it's just the mother. And unfortunately, there's a high percentage of African Trinidadians who do not have a close knit family, and therefore they also have an issue with behavior.
And you don't see a link between that and intergenerational trauma post slavery?
Nah. Let me tell you why. I come from Jamaica. I would say 80% of us are African in Jamaica, or some variation. Well, we have a mix up, so it's some variations thereof. So I would say about 80% of Jamaicans are African. And in Jamaica, there you see it. You see the differences. You see the disparities. It's not about the race. It's about the culture. And so there are, I know of a lot of well-to-do Trinidadians who are of African descent, and it's the culture of the home. And they themselves were a product of slavery, but in their minds, it's a particular type of culture. And what is fascinating about that is nowadays we have a lot of music and a lot of media that pushes a certain lifestyle, and that lifestyle is what directly affects the individual who is going to be not doing well in school, who is going to be attacking someone on the road because they think that they are owed something.
I hear it's a sort of almost popular phrase to blame the music, the influence of the music on bad behavior.
Yeah.
And it sounds good, but I don't know of any empirical data that supports that theory.
All right. So here's my argument to that. If no music, if music doesn't negatively have, well, two things. One, if we're saying that we have young men and young women who need to belong and they don't have an identity, it means that they're more easily manipulated than anyone else. Secondly, there are some songs that are no longer allowed now that were allowed 10, 15 years ago. Like in Jamaica, you would always have songs that were anti-homosexual. No, they're no longer allowed. If they're no longer allowed, that means that some powers that be are of the opinion that those songs promote violence, and it is not supposed to be the case.
Yeah, but also when Elvis Presley came out, the world thought that there will be moral decay because he's shaking his hips, and it didn't happen.
I hear you, but I'd argue that now we have a lot more moral decay. We have more wealth now. Trinidad and Tobago has more wealth now than 50 years ago. Trinidad and Tobago has more education now than 50 years ago. And yet, Trinidad and Tobago is a lot more violent than 50 years ago.